In reality, a Brexit for money laundering doesn't necessarily mean that there would be wholesale change. Much of the EU legislation in this area is derived from the FATF, so from the Financial Action Task Force recommendations. And given that the UK has always gold-plated money laundering legislation, I think in reality we wouldn't see a major change. So sanctions is a much more complex beast than money laundering, I think, for a Brexit. Much of the UK sanction regime is derived from two sources, EU and UN. And EU sanctions are derived in part from the UN. So what would be, it's more difficult to determine what the effect would actually be. I think in reality, what would happen is that the UK would still have sanctions at a similar level to the EU. And in some cases, we actually have further sanctions above and beyond the legislation put in place by the EU. So I think in reality, it wouldn't be that much different. However, there would be some differences perhaps in implementation, differences in the types of sanctions, particularly around sectoral sanctions, individuals and corporates being sanctioned. And so that might increase compliance costs for organisations. So one of the things that we've been looking at is about civil enforcement of judgments. At the moment across the EU, we have the Brussels regulations, which governs the reciprocal recognition and enforcement of judgments. If there were to be a Brexit, I think in reality what would happen is the UK would look to join the Lugano Convention as regards those EU member states and look to have similar position as Switzerland, Iceland and Norway.